Welcome. If you're tuning in right now, this is continuous coverage of Hurricane Earl on News Channel 12 and Fox Eastern Carolina. Wes Goforth and Annette Newell with you, all of our news team personnel around Eastern North Carolina.
Yeah, and a special shout out also, we're simulcasting on our partner radio stations. Those are Bob 93.3 and Rock 105.101. Thank you for joining us if you happen to be listening in to our coverage. And we've been continuously covering the storm since 4 o'clock nonstop throughout the day. And I hope you got a chance to see John Erickson out at Cape Hatteras throughout the day today. He is with a satellite truck out there which has a satellite dish on a big old mast, and we had to pull it down for safety reasons because the winds are getting so bad. And John has illustrated some of the ferocity of those winds out there, Annette. And just in the last couple of hours ago, taped a report for us. This is one of his last reports from the Outer Banks in Cape Hatteras just a couple of hours ago tonight. News Channel 12, John Erickson.
We wanted to leave our perch about 300 feet back from the shore to come right here to the Hatteras Island shore to show you what it looks like where we're likely to get the worst of Hurricane Earl. These waves from here on this beach simply look like monsters rolling in here. As far as what they've done already today, we've talked about Frisco Pier, which is being very much dismantled by Earl just about a mile down. If you look over my shoulder this way, you can see a large pole that looks like it was washed all the way down here. We're barely within eyesight of that pier right now. That piece of wood has traveled a long distance today. We've also been talking about erosion. If you look right down here with me, this is what's been going on, and this is not high tide right now. This is about probably a foot right now. It goes up a little bit more that way as far as where the ocean is chomping away at this dune. Of course, the dune, the only thing separating the water from the road being the only escape route should things get hairy here on Hatteras Island. So, from here, this is the view when you're on the beach. Labor Day 2010, welcome to it. On Hatteras Island, John Erickson, News Channel 12 HD.
Okay, thanks, John, and my apologies. That was much earlier today, Annette, before dark, obviously, and before the winds really picked up. Yeah, and you can see like the effects of the beach erosion there and the winds picking up, and that's something that they're constantly battling out there. We also wanted to go out live to Carly Swain one more time and check in with her. She has been diligently watching what's going on in Carteret County for us, and she's live at Indian Beach. Carly?
Well, Wes and Annette, we're not seeing quite as much action as John Erickson just showed you a little bit north of here, but you know what? That's something that a lot of folks in Carteret County are really glad to hear. Just yesterday, we were over at the Lowe's Home Improvement stores. We saw a lot of folks stocking up on generators and power cords, making sure they had enough backup supplies and hurricane essentials just in case Earl did make landfall and devastate part of Carteret County. You know, they're quite used to seeing a lot of different hurricanes around here, so we had a lot of tourists who, when Carteret County Emergency Management Services said it was time to evacuate, a lot of those tourists who were here for Labor Day, they went ahead and left. But the locals who have been here 10, 20, 30 years, they've been through plenty of hurricanes, thought we'll just go ahead and wait this one out. And of course, they're watching us at home tonight comfortably saying they knew it was going to happen and it wasn't going to touch Carteret County quite so bad. Of course, a lot of preparation still. Some of those same concerns John was mentioning was erosion. That's something that people in Carteret County were a little bit concerned about, but we're not seeing that as a problem as of just yet. Right now, we are seeing a lot of high winds. Some of that tropical rain that Skip had mentioned is certainly coming in at this point here in Indian Beach. The waves still choppy, not quite as bad as what we saw a little earlier today. We'll make sure to keep you updated as the storm continues to surge right through Carteret County.
And again, that's our Carly Swain reporting live tonight one more time from Indian Beach in Carteret County. Thank you for that, Carly. Now, we want to go, actually, we have John Erickson on the phone now. He is at Cape Hatteras. We had to shut down the satellite truck for safety reasons because that's really getting a buffeting from the winds and the high amounts of rains in that area. So, John, are you with us?
Yes, Annette and Wes, good evening. What we've actually done with our crew is retreat to the Hatteras Village Volunteer Fire Department. Some of the crews are here, as far as the firefighters and their families are here. That's on a little bit of a higher ground, but as I'm looking out the back window of this fire department here, I'm standing right next to the wife of one of the firefighters, and she said that because these buildings are built every which way here in the village proper, it just whips this wind through here kind of like a maze, first to the right, then to the left, up and around. It's hard to picture perhaps, but this rain is really coming down and the wind is whipping it through this village proper here. So we're happy to be away from the house, because the locals are telling us that even so, as the storm has weakened throughout the night, they still do expect the road to wash out in some spots, and as the water washes back from the sound, it can create lots of, I guess, the reverse of overwash. Not overwash from the ocean, but water coming on from the sound side of things. They said that in the past, the storms like this, they found hot tubs in their yard. They found sides of houses wrapped around a tree in their yard. They found all sorts of things like that. So we'll wake up tomorrow morning and probably find a geography of this area different from what we left it this evening. But that's what we're seeing right now. So we're still very much tuned in to what's going outside, but we just again had to break down our satellite uplink because of some difficulties and safety issues we were having there, guys. So at least I can hear you now.
John, you mentioned the wind coming from the north now, and the rotation causing, with that northerly wind, the water to come from the sound back over Highway 12 from the north right there. I know you're at the Hatteras Volunteer Fire Department with a bunch of firefighters there who take things very, very seriously. What are you hearing them say about Earl?
Well, I'm hearing them say, first of all, they haven't seen any calls tonight. They say that, of course, should they receive one, their safety comes first. And as we get later into the evening and cross into morning, they say that with the high tide coming and with the wind, it might just be too unsafe for them to even make a move out. But they're saying that they want to kind of dispute some of the media characterization they face, as far as they say they're not irresponsible, they're not stubborn, but these folks say that they have to make their summer living while they can here, and with it being Labor Day weekend, they didn't want to be stuck out of town if they were to evacuate, because they say that once these roads open back up, tomorrow and Saturday, as the storm passes, the tourists will be back, and they want to make sure that they're here to open their businesses so that they can make their money, because they say once summer passes and wintertime comes, the money flow stops. So they need to make it as they can, and they say that is why they have not evacuated, less thrill-seeking, more of just trying to be around to open up shop when the rain and wind stops.
And tourism is a billion-dollar industry in our state. You know, it brings in so much money. And another area where they're keeping a close tab on the storm, which is right close to the water, is in Beaufort County. And Katie Jeffries has been following the conditions there for us, and she's going to join us one more time live from the city of Washington. How's it going, Katie?
The conditions here have actually started to deteriorate. The rain is actually coming down pretty hard right now, and we're getting some pretty strong gusts of wind. It's right on par with what the emergency responders told us. They said around midnight tonight till 2 a.m. is when here in Washington is going to get the brunt of this storm. And we're at 11 o'clock right now, and we're just starting to really feel some of Earl's wrath. Now, at 11 o'clock, a traffic restriction did go into place here in Beaufort County, which means only emergency vehicles are allowed out on the roads. If you're out on the road and you're not an emergency vehicle, they could write you a ticket. It's not a curfew, it's just to keep people off the roads. Another strong gust of wind right there. Now, I'm not sure if you can see it over my shoulder or not, but the water level out here in the Pamlico River is pretty high. It's coming up pretty close to the docks right now. And we are continuing to follow any possible flooding issues. We're about to go check out one of Haven's Gardens. It's one of the first places that floods around here, and we're going to go check that out, see if there's any flooding there right now. Reporting live in Washington, Katie Jeffries, News Channel 12 HD.
Okay, Katie, those onshore winds coming, we're you know, the tide is rising, coming in, high tide here in 3 or 4 hours, and so we're seeing water levels rise in the inland areas of eastern North Carolina. Mike LaQuia is over in Oriental right now, and Mike, does the water continue to rise there? It was going up last time we talked with you.
Right now it looks like it's about the same spot where it was before, but now we've got a wind burst that just came through, knocked over the chair I've been sitting in, almost knocked it into the harbor here behind me. There it is. I better go get that before I end up having to pay for it here. Another thing we've been watching here though lately are these shrimp boats behind me. There's the big shrimping town, and there's some of these shrimp boats behind me. You can see as these wind gusts are starting to pick up now here in Oriental, the ropes going all the way to the top of these shrimp boats are starting to wave back and forth a little bit. The boats themselves are pretty well tied down, anchored in. They're not really going anywhere, but the ropes on top have been swaying back and forth some. Also, a few minutes ago, pretty strong rain bands seemed to come through, bringing the heaviest rain that we've seen yet all night here into Oriental. That was probably just about 10 minutes ago through here. Of course, we're expecting more as this storm continues to move further north. Expecting to see more here, and the rain continue to come down and the water perhaps continue to rise. Now, the other thing we've been watching is over here to my left, where we have the sidewalk here. We've got the sidewalk lit up, and the water has been right there at the edge of the sidewalk for hours now, but it still hasn't creeped right over there. So, and low tide was about 2 hours ago, from what I understand, and so I'm beginning to wonder whether or not it's ever going to get over that sidewalk or not. But that's something we'll be continuing to watch through the night as the rain continues to come down, the wind comes through, and things happen here in Oriental. One other concern too, I talked to a firefighter earlier tonight about the possibility of these winds of knocking down tree branches and causing some power outages. If that happens, there will be a curfew in effect in the town of Oriental because of the danger that these winds and things can bring. Also, something I've observed all week in preparing for the storm, everywhere I go, east, west, I've been seeing some of these tree trucks coming in and cutting down tree branches all over, even in my own neighborhood, in anticipation of the storm, to try and alleviate any potential power problems as these winds roll on through. Reporting live in Oriental, Mike LaQuia, News Channel 12 HD.
Yeah, and that's one consistent thing we've seen across the east is that people have been preparing. The emergency crews were ready. The National Guard troops were in place and ready to go. Even FEMA had sent down a couple of 100,000 meals just in case people would need them. So everything was in place and ready to go in the event of an emergency, so that's just the way it should be. Now, we wanted to go back over to Skip, and we understand some new numbers have just come out, and it looks like it's weakening a little bit.
It is. The winds are down to 105 miles an hour. You know, it's interesting, Mike was talking about the water levels at Oriental. There are several models that are used to try to establish what the storm surge levels are going to be. When you get a storm coming this way where you're dealing with northeast winds, that's our big concern because that's what produces the bulk of the flooding around this area. But this pretty map that you see right here is what's called a slosh model. They've been around since the early 1970s, sea lake overland surge height models. And they are pretty sophisticated, especially as the computers have become more and more sophisticated and can crunch more and more numbers. And they were indicating that the highest water levels that we were going to see would probably be in the South River at about 3 feet, and in Clubfoot Creek, where they would probably be about 3.2 feet. Now, I'm going to show you those up close, but I'm going to tell you something. Those numbers are really, really verifying very nicely, and that is a relief for us to know, because that's one of the instruments that, as we move on through hurricane season and have the potential for other storms, we'll use in tempering our forecast for water levels. You'll recall early in the week we said max water levels about 3 to 5 feet. Then as we move closer to the storm, we said, you know, places from Core Sound across Lola and Cedar Island, from Atlantic back up to Cedar Island, over into Long Bay, back up into South River, we could see some places that go 5 to 7 feet of water. I think the max we're going to see anywhere is probably 5 feet, and that is certainly a relief. The 11 o'clock position, 33.8 north, 74.4 west. This is going to track right to the north, staying about 60 miles off the coast. By 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, almost all of the strong gusty winds will have lifted out to the north, and we'll see improving weather through the day. Right now, we have our strongest winds at about 39 miles an hour over eastern Beaufort, Hyde, Terrell, Dare, Pamlico, and the eastern 7/8 of Carteret County. The strongest winds across the Outer Banks, even those lift out by first thing early tomorrow morning. And then, as John mentioned, talking to the firefighters and the rescue personnel up at Frisco and Hatteras, that tomorrow morning when the winds turn northwest as the storm exits out, we'll see all this water, even though it's only 2 or 3 feet of water, it'll move from the western part of the sound over to the sound side of Ocracoke and Hatteras Island, and we'll be looking at probably some of the highest water levels of the whole event at 3 to 5 feet. and let me tell you, it takes 8 to 9 feet of water to produce significant flooding, and it takes 9 to 13 feet of water to float any houses away or cause any significant structural damage with this stuff. The winds across the region right now, as the storm draws closer, these are actually increasing. If you've been paying attention today, I've been saying from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning is when we'd see things max out for us here, and that's pretty much what we're looking at, with 8 to 15 mile an hour winds inland along the coast, 17 to 23. Our wind gusts have been running now up to 52 miles an hour at Cape Hatteras, and that's the highest one we've seen. Wes and Annette, 52 mile per hour wind gusts now up at Hatteras, and then 29 at Manteo, 35 down at Morehead City. And I want to just so you know, if you've been watching all evening, you've heard me talk about these wind speeds. So we've been up to 52 mile an hour gust here at 11:20, and our computer had forecast that by midnight we would see a 64 mile per hour wind gust here at Hatteras, that we would see a 65 mile per hour wind gust at Ocracoke, that we would see a 65 mile per hour wind gust down at Cape Lookout, the possibility of a 60 mile an hour wind gust across the Bogue Sound beaches on the east side of the island, from Indian Beach to Salter Path to Atlantic Beach to Fort Macon. Our models had suggested maybe a 57 mile an hour wind gust at Sneed's Ferry or Topsail Beach. At this point, if that happens, it's going to happen in the next 90 minutes. 48 mile per hour wind gust at Jacksonville. 34 mile per hour wind gust over at Wallace and Warsaw in the southern parts of Duplin County. 40 mile per hour wind gust at Stallings Jetport aboard the Global Transpark in Kinston. 49 mile per hour wind gust at midnight or close to midnight at New Bern. 60 mile per hour wind gust expected in Oriental. And one thing I want to comment about Mike's reporting there, we had to position Mike right there on Hodges Street, which is kind of a low spot. It's protected from the wind in order to protect the mast on our live truck. We've had phone calls and emails from people that are only about 4 blocks north of where he is, around Hodges Street at Lumac Park and adjacent Lumac Park, Riverside Drive, where they've been buffeted by winds tonight and had significantly more wind than what we were seeing in Mike's reporting, because we had to put him in a protected spot to protect the equipment. 44 mile per hour wind gust at Washington, 38 mile per hour wind gust at Greenville, 48 mile per hour wind gust expected with a departing storm tomorrow morning at Plymouth, 52 mile per hour wind gust expected from Swan Quarter up to Fairfield over to Englehard across the eastern half of Hyde County, and I think that pretty well covers the wind, and it's very similar to what we're seeing with that wind gust that had been as high as 52 up at Cape Hatteras. So again, if you live east of Highway 17, even west of Highway 17, the next 90 minutes is when you're going to see the highest of these winds as the storm moves parallel to the coast. These are buoy reports. 14-foot seas now at Virginia Beach. That's up from 10 feet an hour ago. 20-foot seas have been consistent at Diamond Shoals, and certainly when John was live during the daylight today from Hatteras, you were able to see that the waves were breaking very strong at around 20 feet. We have 9-foot waves 5 miles east of New River Inlet, and we have waves that are now down to about 10 feet at Frying Pan Shoals after being up to about 15 feet. And this is indicative of the fact that the storm's moving northward, and these areas from Frying Pan Shoals and Wilmington back down toward Myrtle Beach are in a part of the storm where the air is beginning to subside and drop, and we are going to see gradually improving conditions here. In fact, these will be the places that clear out over the next couple of hours. We again want to say a big thanks to our radio partners, Bob 93.3 and Rock 105, 101.1, that are simulcasting us starting at 10 o'clock tonight. WRNS, Your Country 95.1, and The Touch 92.3, which has carried updates from us today. You've been listening to meteorologist Dennis Brown updating most of our radio partners during the day because I've been on television for most of the day. Earlier this morning, meteorologist Les Still and meteorologist Tori Shaw were updating those. And one of our longtime radio partners, the Talk Station down in Newport and Morehead City. As we've been tracking Hurricane Earl during the course of the day today, right now we're seeing those winds gusting to 46 miles an hour with 100% humidity at Hatteras, wind gust to 35 at Morehead, 25 at Jacksonville, steady wind at only 8 miles per hour at Greenville, having a pleasant night, 13 at New Bern. And back to the radar we go as we watch the heaviest rainfall continuing to track in across the Outer Banks. As the storm moves northward, you see how most of these bright red shadings are moving down toward the south around the circulation, and they're going to continue to wrap around the storm and run parallel to the coast. So, I mean, really and truly, any heavy rain is generally going to be from Grantsboro eastward, from the North River eastward, from Swan Quarter eastward, and across Dare County and the Outer Banks. And I will mention for you that some of these storms, as they skirt right along the coast, will put down some pretty good rainfall in a short period of time, but I suspect that the greatest of the rainfall tonight and early tomorrow morning will be along the Outer Banks.
And Carly Swain has definitely been seeing some of this rain from Earl, and she joins us one more time from Carteret County, the Indian Beach area, where she has been tracking the conditions for hours now.
Carly? Out of Carteret County a little earlier today was the waves. We kept showing you a lot of videos seeing these waves cresting pretty far out into the ocean, to 10, 12, 15 feet in height. We had a couple folks who came out to visit us here at Indian Beach who said they hadn't seen waves like that in the county since Hurricane Floyd. Now, as the storm is progressing, it continues to move a little further away from Carteret County. The real story now is just wind and rain. Now, because of that wind and rain, even though we didn't get a big touch of Earl here in the Indian Beach area and around Carteret County in general, the concern here, of course, is power outages. That's something that we'll make sure to keep you posted on in our continuing coverage of Hurricane here on News Channel 12 in high definition. Wes, Annette?
Okay, thank you very much, Carly. And of course, when you are the center of attention in the United States and among the media here, you see a lot of national media come into town, Annette, and we've had a lot of national media cover this event, including ABC's TJ Winnick, who was at Atlantic Beach. This will be earlier in the day, so you'll see some things that may have already transpired, but here's TJ Winnick's report from Atlantic Beach.
Earl may now only be a Category 2 hurricane, but the storm is still packing quite a wallop as it skirts the Outer Banks and heads straight for New England.
Take this seriously and be prepared, but don't panic.
Massachusetts, along with Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina, remain under states of emergency. Despite the mandatory evacuations ordered for 3 coastal counties in North Carolina, many here are sticking it out.
We got another thing of milk downstairs. We're marinating some chicken.
Late Thursday, that state's governor told residents it's not too late to leave.
If you're on the Outer Banks still, and you're a resident or a visitor, you still have time to leave the banks, and you still have time to get to a safer place.
Some took that advice.
So I think it's a serious hurricane. It could get real dangerous in a hurry. So why take a chance?
Cape Cod, Massachusetts is home to 500,000 summer residents, and though a hurricane hitting the Northeast is a once-in-a-generation event, authorities there promise they'll be ready.
We are in a position to rapidly respond to meet the needs of the local communities, whether they be for continued sheltering, debris management, life safety, communications support, or whatever the needs may be.
Overall, 100,000 people were ordered to evacuate down here on the Barrier Islands. The worst of Hurricane Earl is expected to hit this coast at 2 a.m. Eastern Time Friday morning. TJ Winnick, ABC News, Atlantic Beach, North Carolina.
Okay, so we're definitely not out of the woods yet. We're still expecting a lot of the power of the storm to start kicking in. And one person who's definitely seen a lot of power out of the storm is our own John Erickson.
I'll say, John, getting battered along Cape Hatteras this afternoon, and tonight you saw him getting hit by those gusts of up to 52 miles an hour. Last report, though, he had hunkered down with the Hatteras Volunteer Fire Department indoors, and John's on the phone again right now. How you doing, John?
Oh, we're doing well, Wes. We are here still at the fire department, and as far as what we saw on our drive over here, there was beginning to be some water on the roads. It wasn't covering any of the roads, but it was beginning to pool alongside of the road. So a few times it splashed onto our windshield, and we couldn't see for a few seconds. But as far as flooding goes on the roads, in about a mile or so we drove, I guess, south on Highway 12. We weren't able to see any major water over the roads. As far as what it's looking like outside right now, still some real blustery gusts we're seeing right now. We're seeing a sustained wind and then lots of gusts rolling through here at the fire department. They are estimating the gusts to be up to about 60 miles an hour right now. And the rain, as far as what I can see, looking out the back window here at some hotels in the community center, some condos, it looks like they're in the distance. The water is still draining well out of this, I guess you could say, the village proper area. So not really collecting here. So we are upstairs keeping an eye on the track, on the TV, and everyone's now the talk has turned to what time is high tide and what that all means for us here west of Annette.
Okay, and while you're hearing from the firefighters there, what are some of their main concerns? Are they worried that there might be so much erosion that some buildings, some structures might be in trouble, or what is their main concern tonight?
Well, their main concern, and they say one of the reasons that they didn't leave is that to come back, it just takes so long after an evacuation, and that should their homes suffer damage, that's their number one priority. One firefighter just told me that everything takes a back seat when your living room is in your front yard. So those are the concerns about these guys. These are family guys. Their 10-year-old children are sleeping on the cots here in the fire department hall. So they're all here together and watching this thing play out on television and, of course, right outside the window.
And of course, they're the real heroes there, John, because of the evacuation order, but they can't leave. They have to keep everyone safe. They have to keep their kids there and their families there, and hopefully everything will be okay, high and dry inside the fire department.
That is true, yes, and they say that the fire department and the building next door, the community center, which we're told is also holding a few evacuees here, are among the best structurally of the buildings here in Hatteras. So you're right that as far as heroes go, if they get a call, well, they're going to look out the window and weigh it for all involved, not only those who called, but their own safety as well. Less than that.
All right. In the Hatteras area, of course, a lot of concerns in that area are about flooding, but fortunately, we've been hearing from Skip tonight that we don't expect to exceed that threshold of really dangerous high waters in that area. So we're going to go over to Skip now for an update on what's going on with the latest with this hurricane.
And we are not going to see any really major flooding. You know, John was just talking to us about high tide, which comes up between 2 and 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. But what's going on here is as these winds have shifted to the north around the circulation of the storm, they're running parallel to the beach. And John had mentioned how during the afternoon, even at low tide, the ocean was up right along the beachfront, right along the dune line, and then as we moved closer and closer past low tide into high tide, he thought the waves would be coming back in. But what happens is when the wind blows from the north, it pushes those waves out along this beach that kind of bulges slightly out to the east. The winds catch it, run parallel to it, and will tend to push those waves out about 40 feet. Which is what they've been seeing. So for now, any flooding issue that we have, based on what we've seen tonight with these water levels running 2, 3, 4 feet, pretty much as the Slosh computer models have predicted, those water levels are not going to come up dramatically as we go to high tide along the Outer Banks, because they're going to have to fight the north wind, which, as John said, is gusting to 60 miles an hour. What will happen as the storm moves to the north and the winds shift northwest, will then take these 2 to 3 feet of water that are in the Pamlico, the Neuse, the Pungo River, the Pamlico Sound, and push them out toward the southeast, northwest winds pushing them southwest. And so we will see some 3 to 5 foot flooding from South River around Long Bay towards Cedar Island, and then back down into the mouth of the Core Sound. We'll see 3 to 5 foot flooding at Portsmouth Island, Ocracoke Island on the Sound side, and probably 3 to 5 foot flooding on the Sound side of Hatteras Island as well. And then you get up into the river basins, the Albemarle Sound and the Roanoke River Basin. Northwest winds would give us probably 3 feet of flooding around Mackey's over toward Columbia and down into the mouth of the Alligator River. And a northwest wind will take the fair, the 1 to 2 feet above water normal tides, storm tides that we've seen in the Neuse River, and push them downriver. So from Adams Creek to Clubfoot Creek around the South River in Maryland, they would probably see some pretty significant water levels as well.